brewed my life at the melting floor, in the old brew house by the shore. When the vats ran dry and the wages fell, the harbor called and I knew it well. They said there's gold in the fog tonight, past it is Hook and the beacon light. Row out quiet, don't leave a wake, haul back whiskey before daybreak. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. We met the ship in the channel deep, her lantern low, half asleep. Crates of whiskey, marked hardware nails, pass by hand when the moonlight fails. I rode beneath the harbor house, where the floorboards leak to lanterns glow. The Coast Guard's horn was a hunter's cry as the fog rolled thick and they passed me by. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. A crate broke loose, crushed my leg and knee. The fog closed in, I could barely breathe. They sealed the hatch, let the patrol go by, and I drifted down with the whiskey sigh. Now the streets are higher, the docks are gone, but when the fog rolls in before dawn, you'll hear 3 knocks where the floorboards shake. That's me below, make no mistake. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. No, the sea don't give, it only takes.
Ghost of the Harbour House. A Port Angeles ghost story. I brewed my life away at the Angeles Brewing and Malting Company, back when the air smelled of hops and wet cedar, and the vats steamed like morning fog. The malting floor was my world. Copper kettles gleaming, barrels stacked to the rafters. The rhythm of honest work that put food on the table and kept a roof over your head. The smell of malt clung to my hands, no matter how hard I scrubbed. That ended in 1916, when they shuttered the doors. Washington went dry that January. The temperance folk got their way, and that was the end of honest work for men like me. The vats cooled, the steam stopped rising, and we were left standing in the street with empty pockets and nowhere to go. But the thirst did not end. The loggers still wanted their drink, the mill hands still needed to forget their troubles, and the harbour never cared what the law said. The brewery had been good to us once, but some said it was cursed long before the dry laws shut it down. The Albion was the brewery's steamboat. She went down in 1910 after a collision with a steel-hulled ship 6 times her size, off West Point, at the north edge of Elliott Bay near Seattle. She was returning to Port Angeles with malt and barley aboard when the Chippewa's steel bow drove into her side like an axe splitting kindling. They said no one died that night, but there were whispers about a man who had been aboard, someone working off the manifest, catching a ride, trying to get home. He vanished that night, and they never found him. The Albion limped back to port, but the brewery never quite recovered. Some said the loss marked the beginning of its decline, that the company's luck turned the moment they left that man off the books. By the time the temperance law came in 1916, it felt like the final blow in a long run of bad fortune. Sometimes, when I stood alone in the brewhouse, I could still hear the timbers creak, the echo of water against the hull. Maybe it was just memory. Maybe it was something else. Some nights, I wondered if I was following that missing man's path, walking the same docks, breathing the same salt air, heading toward the same dark water. A man at the harbor offered me work in early 1916. $20 for one night's rowing. Canadian whiskey coming across from Victoria, anchored on a ship beyond Adiz Hook. I tried to find other work. God knows I tried. But jobs were scarce, and a man has got to eat, and I was out of funds. I took the job. We would slip out under fog, transfer the cargo, bring it to shore. Quick, quiet, and more money than I had seen since the brewery closed. We did not keep a schedule. The runs came by signal, not by calendar. A lantern from the mothership, a hurried knock at the alley, the right drift of tide and fog, that was when we slipped out. When the water and night were on our side, we rowed past the lighthouse, the mothership's lantern low and barely visible through the mist. The crates were marked hardware nails, but everyone knew what they truly held. We passed them hand to hand in silence, then rowed back through the fog with the tide. The delivery point was a place called the Harbour House, an old saloon that became a social hall when the law changed. But the real business still happened after dark. They kept the old trapdoor in the back room, the kind that opened straight down to the water when the tide was high. We would knock 3 times, the hatch would open, and we would pass the cargo up one crate at a time. Quick work, quiet work, the kind you did not talk about. It happened on March 23rd, 1916. Thursday night, low tide turning to high, no moon. The fog came in heavier than I had ever seen it, so thick you could not see your own hands or tell water from air. We loaded the cargo and started back. Everything was going smooth until we heard the Coast Guard's horn cutting through the fog. That sound turned your blood to ice. We killed our lantern and rowed for the pilings, trying to reach the harbour house before they spotted us. We made it under the building. The boat rocked between the pilings, the men tense and whispering. We were handing crates up through the trapdoor when someone muttered that we should back away before the patrol came closer. "One more," I said, reaching for the last crate. "We're nearly done." Then someone above hissed that the Coast Guard was at the front door, demanding to see the night's delivery papers. I turned toward the searchlight cutting through the fog, trying to see how close the patrol boat was. In their panic above, someone shoved the last crate back through the hatch. It struck me hard across the back of the head. Everything went white. I pitched forward, my leg catching between the gunwale and the piling, twisting sharp. Then I tore free and plunged into the water. The cold hit like a fist. I gasped and swallowed salt water, choking, my lungs burning. I couldn't tell which way was up. The current pulled at me, dragging me under the pilings. I kicked hard, breaking the surface, coughing and spitting brine. Something warm ran down the back of my neck, mixing with the salt water. The boat was already moving away, the men rowing hard for the shore pilings, abandoning ship before the searchlight found them. I tried to call out, but my voice was gone, drowned in sea water and the roar of the patrol boat's engine. Through the blur of water and pain, I saw the trapdoor still open above me, lamplight spilling down through the fog. A figure leaned over the edge for just a moment, then pulled back. The hatch slammed shut. The light vanished. They sealed the hatch and let the patrol go by. The tide was rising fast, pouring through the pilings with the force of the turning current. I grabbed for the nearest piling, but my hands were numb and slick with blood. The barnacles tore into my palms, and I couldn't hold on. My injured leg wouldn't support my weight. My vision blurred. The world tilted sideways. I could feel myself slipping, the strength draining out of my arms with each pulse of blood from the wound at the back of my skull. The cold was stealing my thoughts, making everything distant and slow. The fog closed in. The searchlight swept overhead, and the water rose. I thought about the Albion, about the sound of steel striking wood, about passengers waking in the dark to water pouring through the hull, about the man who vanished that night 6 years before, lost between the manifest and the tide. Maybe I had been following him all along. My grip failed. I slipped beneath the surface. The last thing I remember was the Coast Guard beam sweeping past, a pale glow through the black water, and thinking, just a light. That is all I need. One light to find my way home. But the sea does not give. It only takes. They found the boat the next morning, half caught in the pilings west of the docks, the oars missing and one crate of whiskey still aboard, streaked with blood. Authorities questioned everyone who had been at the docks the night before and searched the shoreline, but people kept their silence and no body was recovered. In a town that kept track of its own, his absence was noticed at once, and rumour filled the gap. Another name lost between the waves and the paperwork. Another ghost without a record. They filled the waterfront a few years later, raising the streets and burying the old pilings 12 feet deep. The harbour house was rebuilt higher, the trapdoor sealed forever, the sea locked away beneath layers of earth and stone. Nowadays, when the fog rolls in from the strait and the beacon at Adie's Hook glows across the water, strange things happen at the harbour house. The floorboards grow cold. Sometimes the glasses shake, like the tide still moves somewhere under the floor. And if you listen close, you will hear it. 3 slow knocks from below the floor. Hollow and patient, like someone asking to be let in. That is me below. Make no mistake. I am still down there in the dark, trapped between the water and the wood, trying to deliver a cargo that was lost the moment the tide turned. Still knocking on a door that will never open. Still rowing home through fog that never clears. The sea does not give, it only takes. That is the truth of the harbour, and it is the truth for me. And it never, ever gives you back what it took. They say if you leave a glass of Canadian whiskey on the back bar when the fog comes in, it will be empty by morning. The old sailors do it still, raising their glasses to a man they never knew, singing a ballad about a smuggler who drowned beneath the harbour house in 1916. His name was Red, at least, that is what they call him. The sea kept the rest.
I brewed my life at the melting floor, in the old brew house by the shore. When the vats ran dry and the wages fell, the harbor called and I knew it well. They said there's gold in the fog tonight, past it is Hook and the beacon light. Row out quiet, don't leave a wake, haul back whiskey before daybreak. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. We met the ship in the channel deep, her lantern low, half asleep. Crates of whiskey, marked hardware nails, passed by hand when the moonlight fails. I rode beneath the harbor house, where the floorboards leaked to lanterns glow. The Coast Guard's horn was a hunter's cry as the fog rolled thick and they passed me by. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. A crate broke loose, crushed my leg and knee. The fog closed in, I could barely breathe. They sealed the hatch, let the patrol go by, and I drifted down with the whiskey side. Now the streets are hired, the docks are gone, but when the fog rolls in before dawn, you'll hear 3 knocks where the floorboards shake. That's me below, make no mistake. The sea don't give, it only takes your breath, your bones, your past mistakes. It'll steal your name for the harbor's sake. The sea don't give, it only takes. No, the sea don't give, it only takes.
Ghost of the Harbor House was inspired by stories shared during the Port Angeles Underground Heritage Tour, where our guide described how early waterfront buildings once stood on pilings above the tide. He explained how some buildings downtown had once opened directly to the harbor, allowing small boats to pass beneath. Partway through the tour, our guide briefly mentioned an old rumor, not part of the standard presentation, just a passing comment that caught my attention. He said that smugglers from Canada were once believed to have rowed beneath those buildings under cover of fog, passing crates of whiskey up through trapdoors in the floors to hidden storerooms above. He also shared that a woman from Victoria, British Columbia, had taken the tour years earlier. She told him her grandfather had been part of the whiskey trade between Victoria and Port Angeles, helping to offload contraband from larger mother ships anchored offshore and rowing the cargo across the harbor before sunrise. That second-hand story, mentioned only in passing, became the spark for this piece. The historical background is true. In November 1914, Washington voters approved a statewide ban on the manufacture and sale of alcohol, which took effect in 1916, 4 years before national prohibition began in 1920. Bars and breweries across the state closed almost overnight, including the Angeles Brewing and Malting Company, which had operated near the waterfront since 1901. The loss of the brewery and its shipping routes left many local men out of work. The steamer Albion mentioned in this story was one of the brewery's real vessels. On August 2nd, 1910, she was struck by the steel-hulled passenger steamer Chippewa off West Point at the northern edge of Elliott Bay near Seattle, while returning to Port Angeles with malt and barley aboard. Reports said the Albion misunderstood the Chippewa's signal and turned the wrong way, placing herself in the larger ship's path. The Chippewa's bow tore through her side, opening a deep gash in the hull. Although the crew survived, local rumor claimed that an unlisted worker, someone traveling off the manifest, was lost that night and never found. In Ghost of the Harbor House, these two accounts are joined by circumstance. The narrator is not the missing sailor from the Albion, but another brewery worker who came a few years later, drawn into smuggling after the brewery's closure, and lost to the same water that had already claimed one of its own. The story also touches on the Port Angeles regrade, the great project that reshaped the waterfront beginning in 1914. Streets were lifted, foundations buried, and the harbor's old pilings entombed beneath new layers of earth. They say the work closed off the tides forever, but stories persist of hollow spaces and sealed passageways below where the sea still whispers against the old wood. The man they called Red may be fiction, but the fog and the ghosts of Port Angeles have a way of feeling real when the tide comes in.